today's meeting on the unceded territory of the Tloquay First Nation. And I know some of our staff of the ACRD are coming from, there could be also a variety of other NTC, Nuu-chah-nulth Tribal Council territories that they're operating from. I'd like to maybe start out with some introductions of who's here in the committee room, as well as the staff members. And maybe, actually, we can start down here on to my left, Mayor
Danlow.
There we go.
Marilyn McEwen, Mayor of Ucluelet.
Tom Steer, Councillor of the District of Tofino and chairing of the West Coast Committee.
Kel Roberts, alternate director for Area C of the ACRD.
Daniel Sayano, the CAO for the ACRD.
Jenny Brunn, General Manager of Community Services for the ACRD.
And we have a couple of delegations that will be coming up, so they'll be able to introduce themselves when that time comes. So that would be great. Just a quick approval of the agenda, if I could have a motion there.
So moved.
Thank you, Kel. Seconded.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion carried. We do have some West Coast Committee meeting minutes that we need to approve. Thank you, Marilyn.
I'll approve those.
Thank you, Kel, for seconding. All those in favor? Motion carried. And so quickly we can get up to our petitions, allegations, and presentations today. Janetta, we have from Conservation Partnership Coordinator with the Clackamas Biosphere Trust today presenting the Clackamas Biosphere Trust 2023 Vital Signs Report. I think we all got one here, but
I'll throw a couple more out.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Jenny.
Great.
Awesome. I'm Janessa Dornstetter. I'm the Conservation Partnerships Coordinator for the Clackamas Biosphere Trust. And I'm here to talk to you about vital signs. We're really excited to have this out in the public, in people's hands. It's been about 9 months of writing, research, editing, and yeah, happy to have it out there and completed. So do you want to do the slides for me or just?
I think you should push that button and see what happens. Okay. I can do it. I think the computer screen that I'm seeing is a different screen, so it's very interesting. But look,
I just-
There it is.
oh, there-
Something was there.
for it. There it is.
There we go.
Would it be helpful if we brought that screen down? Your
Much sun.
Turn this light off too. Essence the glare.
there we go. See if that works for everyone.
Want that off? Better.
That's great, yeah.
Okay.
That looks great. Awesome. Thank you. So the CBT, the Clackamas Biosphere Trust, is the organization that oversees the UNESCO Biosphere designation here in Clackamas Sound, and we're also the community foundation for the region. And so as a community foundation, we do the Vital Signs report every 2 years. It's been 5 years since the last one due to COVID and some lagging census data. But we're doing this in conjunction with all of the community foundations across Canada. You can press the next slide. So my colleague Colin is probably the only person that can pull off a slide with an emoji in it, but this slide is basically just to say that as an organization, we really work to intertwine all of the different themes and indicators of the report into our work. But we do recognize that the report is very segmented and compartmentalized across different topics. Okay. So like I said before, we do this typically every 2 years. We've been doing it since 2012 with a small lag, but it gave us the opportunity to do a little bit of a snapshot in 2021 on tourism. You can do next slide. And our region encompasses the territories of Heshkrit, Ahousaht, and Tloquay, but like geographically, but we also have sort of the social watershed of Ucluelet territory and Toquat Nation. So Vital Signs is a program, not just the book that you have in front of you. Vital Signs encompasses the report as well as Vital Conversations and Vital Grants. So the last report led to Vital Conversations around youth and sustainable tourism, and it's basically an opportunity to dig in to the challenges and opportunities that we see in the report.
So Mayor Law's daughter's in that and my son's in that picture.
Great community participation.
I just, yeah,
They put that in there.
I know that.
And like I said, too, Vital Grants is a part of the program too, and it's a way to support projects that align with the data generated through the program. Something that was new this year was incorporating community advisory committee. And so this was a great opportunity to really listen to folks in the community and hear what they had to say about the last report and identify gaps that we could highlight in this report this year. So something that came out of that is our pages on truth and reconciliation. If you have flipped through the book, it's the center page that really, recognizes the history of the region. I'm not going to go into too much more detail about the content of the report. That could be here all day or all week. So you can actually flip through most of the next slides, but if you haven't flipped the report, these are the different themes and indicators that we have throughout the report. So what's next? The Vital Signs report is out. People are reading it and tuning into the different challenges and opportunities that it highlights. And we don't want to stop there. So like I said, we have the Vital Grants coming up in February that will be opening up to the public. These are sort of the larger grant opportunities that really hone into different parts of the report. And then we also have Vital Conversations coming up in the new year. And so we haven't actually decided what these Vital Conversations are yet. It's not typically something that we decide. It's something that partners would like to come to us to co-host. And so this is a really good opportunity for the council to identify or flip through and see if there's any opportunities to co-host a Vital Conversation. And then I'll just quickly touch on the Data Hub. This is something on our website to basically keep Vital Signs program living. So it's not something that we want to just tune into every 2 years. This is an opportunity for data to be kind of live and up to date. And that should be it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate that very much. We've been fortunate enough, some of us, to have had the presentation before, but maybe I'll reach out to a couple of the committee members. I know Marielle's had this as well, but Cal or anybody else here that might have a question regarding some of the information there. I do want to point out the important relevance of this document, certainly for local government. And there's a lot of overlap, a lot of great data in there that is pertinent to the ACRD and specifically for us here on the West Coast Committee. Tons of valuable data that I know at the municipality, we often refer to that documentation. I won't say every council meeting, but it often comes up. We often refer to that Vital Signs. We're so happy to have it out there and available to us. And Bob's wife, as you know, was instrumental in putting the document together. So we have all families all together here.
And I do also just want to say thank you to all of district and staff. ACRD, Tofino, Euclid staff had a big role in compiling data for us. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for this presentation. I'm so pleased to see that after so many years that the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust has come forward with this information. And I know it's extremely, I've been involved to some extent with the Redfish Society, and very pleasing to see the work they're being done and everything that's going on here on the West Coast and Area C and everywhere along the coast is extremely vital for the future for our children. And from my perspective, job well done. So thank you very much.
Let's go.
Cheers.
And I see Kirsten, welcome. Good to see you. Joining Sinan here. Moving on through the agenda, if there's no further comments or questions. I don't know if we have them up, but I see we have Shilpa Paniker from Watt Consulting Group was next on the agenda, but I don't know. She is teed up, ready to go.
She is there. We are.
Great. Thank you. So Shilpa, welcome. Good to see you again. She'll be presenting today on an update on the West Coast Transit implementation. So thank you and go ahead.
Morning, Chair. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to be quick The update, I have a small presentation to share, so I'm going to share that momentarily. Please let me know if you cannot see my screen.
We have your screen up front here.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to quickly give you an update about what's going on. We've been in the process of kind of finalizing the contract with the operating company, and things have been kind of slow moving forward. I have a bit of a context, and then I'll get into the implementation plan where we'll talk about the final routing, the schedule, stops, technology, and branding pieces, and then a more up-to-date timeline of potential implementation. We talked about the context the last time. The goal here is to develop an interim transit service solution that can be locally funded. We've gotten to a point where we have now an operating company identified to implement the service. The contract with that operating company is being finalized by the ACRD at this time. We have a final routing that connects Tofino to Ucluelet, serving communities on the way. We also have a final schedule. And in the next few months, what we anticipate working through and finalizing are the bus stops. At this point, there are about 42 bus stops planned, 6 in the district of Ucluelet, 24 in the district of Tofino, 2 in Taiztinas in Essa Vista, 4 in Hitatsu, Ucluelet First Nation, 2 stops at the Highway 4 junction, and then 4 in the Pacific Rim National Park, which is the Parks Canada jurisdiction. There are conversations on at this point in terms of like location of the stop, safety associated with stopping and picking up passengers at these stops, what kind of shelter needs required, are we prioritizing certain stops over other stops in terms of putting in shelters, what kind of grant program are we pursuing to put in the shelters, things like that. So all of that work is underway right now. As far as technology is concerned, within the scope of the contract, we've got subsidized fare boxes, which are basic gravity feed fare boxes. I don't know if you've seen, but in fairly older buses, you'd have a fare box where you drop in tickets or you drop in cash. That is what we've identified at this time through the contract. There'd be onboard cameras on the vehicles for safety, and there'd be a customer-facing app. And all of this was part of the negotiation, the part of the contract that the operating company had identified in their initial response to the RFP. Outside of the contract, we are exploring cashless technology options, trying to see what would be the easiest and most cost-effective way of bringing in cashless technology, given that this is an interim service and given that BC Transit is potentially going to take over the service in a few years. And so what is technology that we can maybe put on the buses without it being really A, expensive, B, hard to kind of transition over back to BC Transit? Because they have their own technology. And so we're in the process of figuring out what would be the most cost-effective and efficient from that perspective. We are not naming any vendors at this point. We're just in conversations with the vendors. In addition to technology, we did talk about branding the last time. So the cost-effective option for branding at this point is to not do any branding at this point, to be very basic and just call this the West Coast Transportation Service. And then adopt a customized version of BC Transit branding standards when that service comes into effect is probably the most efficient way of going forward, because then BC Transit will cost share all the stop signage, all the marketing materials, they'll develop the brand, the logo and all of that. And so no money needs to be spent on that at this point in time if we go down that route. If we do want to pursue branding, a slightly less cost-effective option would be for us to hire a branding consultant, complete basic branding, logo, rider's guide, stop signage, within potentially a cost of about $10,000. The idea here, though, is that eventually when BC Transit comes in, this logo will have to be adapted to that. The logo incorporates BC Transit as well. And so eventually this will change. I think there needs to be some discussion around what direction is as far as branding is concerned. Is it feasible to, at this point, not invest in branding and then eventually invest in branding when BC Transit takes on the service eventually? It's a bit about branding as far as implementation timeline is concerned. We're going with a conservative estimate at this point of April of 2024, and then working backwards from April of 2024 through January, February, and March. We're going to work through marketing materials. We're going to work through policies and procedures, stop signs, and then marketing of the actual service leading up to the April 01 implementation. We are here right now in December. We will finalize the communications plan with the ACRD, try and get in some grant applications for bus stop shelters, and then finalize contract with PWT as well. So that's my presentation as far as next steps are concerned. We'd be over the next few months involved in finalizing stops, technology, branding related components, formalize the contract, and then we get formally into implementation planning 4 rolls around. And like I said, implementation likely in April of 2024. That's all I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Shilpa. Appreciate the update to the committee here. I'll look to the committee themselves. Marilyn, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I was under the understanding that this service would start in January. So can you explain what the holdup has been for now April?
To the chair, councillor, I think it's really been like finalizing the contract that's taken a little longer than anticipated, as well as we've been all of these things take much longer than anticipated in terms of like figuring out what technology components are, some coordination with BC Transit as well in terms of we don't want to set up the service in a way that, eventually when and if BC Transit comes in, this is going to be hard transition to BC Transit. And so want to make sure that even if we take on technology on the buses, it's got to be compatible with what BC Transit is going to bring in. And so all of these things have definitely added a lot more time than we had anticipated.
Yeah, question. Thanks, Shilpa, for the presentation. So are you working hand in glove with BC Transit in this operation?
We've had a few coordination meetings. I'd even say actually just 2 at this point, because we don't know for certain whether the service is going to start from BC Transit. There is indications that it is imminent, but we just want to be on the safer side and ensure that if and when that service starts, there is a coordinated effort, and it's not one of those things that when BC Transit comes in, it's start from scratch at their end.
So is there any timeline as far as the implementation with BC Transit?
They've been very, they have not committed to a timeline at this point. It does take time from a provincial perspective for the request that Tofino Transit be now a part of BC Transit. It takes time for that budget to get approved, and then eventually, buses to be procured, and then service to be on the road. We're definitely looking at an easy year and a half process, but after a formal announcement is made.
Okay, thanks, Shilpa. I have been so looking forward to seeing transit out here on the West Coast, which started a number of years ago and hasn't been completed. And I'm glad to see that you're stepping up, the company's stepping up to this. So appreciated. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Just a couple of comments, and I think maybe look to the CIO to follow up on some of the questions that were coming in. I know this has been a topic of conversation at the ACRD level and certainly at our meetings over the last couple of years at UBCM. And I'm wondering, we're fortunate to have the CIO here, wondering if there's been any updates in terms of conversations with the province and specifically BC Transit.
So we've been coordinating with our MLA. Sorry. I was cheering loud last night for Christine St. Clair in Vancouver. We've been coordinating with the office of our MLA to have a meeting with Minister Fleming, transportation. We went through one route there, and the comments we had back is that it's better for us to coordinate a date and time directly. So now it's back on my desk, and we will coordinate directly. I've been working with Jenny to get a more detailed report, so we can take in all the latest information and make sure that our meeting with the minister is clear on our ask and what it is that we're actually doing. Once we have a date, then we'll be reaching out to get as much representation as possible from all the stakeholders or interested parties here on the West Coast. We would like to make sure that the nations are part of that as well, because it's an important component, and have a strong showing in Victoria.
Thank you, Daniel.
Actually, Shilpa, I just have a question. How has discussions with the District of Tofino and possibly Hewlett as well been going regarding bus stop placement and infrastructure? How's that been? Has that been working out?
We've had very initial conversations, and it's been a few months. I intend starting off those conversations again. We've had more conversations with Tofino Shuttle because they have existing stops, and we're hoping to use those existing stops. So these conversations with the District of Tofino as well as with the District of Ucluelet are going to start off again this in December as well as through January. I'm pretty positive they would go well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just maybe another comment. I just want to point out the ACR, the vital signs report touches on transportation and inequality right in the report. So once again, we have a direct, and you can see the inequalities around transportation in our region. So the importance of this can't be underestimated. I do, in terms of some of the rest of the finalization of the implementation for this service, you touched on branding and you touched on the cashless technology. And I'm going to be very interested to know, because in this interim service, and as you pointed out, with an interim service, we want to be cautious about how much we're investing into that with the potential down the road. But we also want to ensure that this service is going to be utilized and as effective as possible. So I would, and I'm not an expert in this field, but I'd sure like to know in terms of branding, how important that will be in terms of ensuring that that service is communicated and that people understand what we have going here on the West Coast. And then second, of course, is the making it, I don't know many folks that carry cash nowadays. And so we have to make sure that we're utilizing whatever we can to ensure that this technology or the services is going to be used by all who may need to have access to it. So I would strongly encourage we look at ways of incorporating whatever types of payment are going to be most effective for this service. So I'll leave those comments there, and want to once again thank you and look forward to getting a further update. And I'm going to cross my fingers that April will be the start date for this service moving forward on the West Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Great. And so our third delegation of the day, Bob, Community Coordinator with WellSafe BC Pacific Rim, giving us an overview of our human wildlife coexistence on the West Coast.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Directors. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of the 2023 WildSafe BC Pacific Rim program. I'm presenting on behalf of myself and my colleague, Mandy Lawrence. Mandy sends her regrets. She's in New Zealand on a volunteer assignment with Department of Conservation down there, but she'll be back next spring. This is was my sixth season as WildSafe Community Coordinator, and it was Mandy's first. Next slide, please. I'm going to start off with a description that we call overview of wildlife activity, but included in that is a description of coexistence challenges we experienced in 2023. And as we go through the presentation, I think you'll see that this year is significantly different from past years. And we're utilizing numbers here to present aspects of that picture. This season, we had 9 food condition bears, one of which, or one bear was lethally euthanized, but it was not a food condition bear. It was actually following quite a intense attack on a dog with a person standing beside the dog, and that bear was put down. Actually, there was 0 euthanized bears this year for the first time in I can't remember how long. The categories or sources of attractants that resulted in conflicts, the primary category was the new residential carts. And there was actually, there is a food condition bear active right now. And since this presentation was submitted, that bear has actually been quite busy. So I'll update some of these numbers. There's now have been 70 carts targeted by bears. 44 were garbage, 24 were compost. In 33 instances, carabiners were broken off. In 17 instances, 7 carts were dragged away into the bush. On 4 occasions, carts were anchored as per the advice of the regional district and WildSafe BC, and were not accessed and were not dragged away. So we have documentation of that system working. 2 bears died in vehicle collisions. There was 52 close encounters, 4 bluff charges, and on 1 occasion, bear spray was used. The picture or these numbers describe a complete shift from the patterns of recent years. Over the previous 4 years, 38 bears were euthanized, food condition bears. And the main sources of conflict in the recent past included Rubbermaid containers of garbage and recycling stored in sheds. And in fact, in 2021, 2022, there was 80+ sheds broken into by bears. Last year, another significant source of unnatural foods for bears were commercial bins. There was 21 commercial bins accessed by bears last year, and 42 vehicles were opened by bears the last 2 years. So when I talk about this year being very different, there was only 4 shed incidents this year. 0 vehicles were opened, and only 2 commercial bins were accessed. The bears, mostly as the numbers show, targeted residential carts. And as I mentioned at the top, there was 0 euthanized bears this year. Next slide, please. So the next 2 slides describe some specific program activities undertaken to increase the capacity of West Coast residents and visitors to coexist with wildlife that we share this landscape with. The program's foundation is built on a growing network of collaborative working relationships to engage with as many people as possible. This was the 2nd season of having 2 community coordinators. Last year, we reported that by having 2 community coordinators, our engagement numbers increased by 90%. This year, we exceeded last year's engagement. So the impact of having 2 community coordinators is really dramatic. So some specific activities, 31, actually now it's 32, wildlife safety and awareness presentations, reaching close to 400 people, 8 WildSafe Ranger presentations in our local elementary schools, both communities, over 300 students and teachers. 11 display booths reaching almost 1,200 people, 6 door-to-door education campaigns where we delivered information packages to 224 residents, 72 Facebook posts, reaching 10% more followers than last year and 11% more page likes, and over 28,000 accounts reached. Mandy really led that. She did just an amazing job on the Facebook side of it. Next. So there were 10 media appearances, radio, interviews, and a new initiative with Off the Edge Radio that I'll speak a bit more about. Newspaper articles, ads, and 4 videos that I'll also speak a bit more about. 20 businesses are working on the WellSafe Business Pledge, and actually the most recent to complete is Tofino Co-op last week. And so that brings the number up to 10 have completed the program and are doing it for the long term, and 10 businesses are at various stages of that business pledge process. 18 electric fencing projects, 8 completed, 1 pending, 9 detailed consultations where we actually got to a design phase, and possibly those will become projects in the future. 3 bear spray training workshops, 4 electric fencing training workshops, other outreach, numerous personal interactions, get a lot of phone calls, emails, stopped in the grocery store, lots of personal interactions, door to door, etc. In terms of the videos, I'd just like to mention, so there was 2 electric fencing instructional videos completed, and those have been shared province-wide now. And a CBC mini documentary was done on the Bear Campsite program, collaborated with the National Park on that initiative. And a new video series project was initiated that we're calling Business Pledge Journeys. So it describes what it's like from the business operator's perspective to be involved in that program. And the first video was just completed with the Wiccan and Shannon, and that's posted as well. And that's being shared province-wide as well as and on Off the Edge Radio, 5 podcast style episodes were recorded, and we're pretty excited about the potential for that, and that it's actually happening. And also there's a whole new education resources initiative that Mandy has been heading up that specifically targets staff, both at work and in their at home, and particularly if they're in staff housing. And in the appendices and executive summary documents that provided, you'll see that a major proportion of our time this season was really focused on education around managing the new residential carts in a wild-safe manner, and extensive collaboration support with the ACRD. And it's just been an impressive amount of effort to get the information into the hands of residents. So next slide.
Maybe?
There, okay, and should be able to click in that blue square. So this will give a visual glimpse of the season. Great, and would like to express a profound thanks to everyone whose logos are on that final slide there. The support from the districts and from many businesses, from organizations like the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust has made all of this possible. And to the final slide is the roadmap ahead. The first bullet is speaks to the anticipation of the formal adoption of the new Tofino Wildlife Attractive Management Bylaw, and looking forward to, and actually you've had meetings with staff about developing a communication and implementation strategy this winter. In anticipation of rolling it out and making residents aware that that is coming and what the implications are for people. And hopefully all of this will be work that will can be built on if the bylaw is passed. The District of Ucluelet hopefully can keep it going and continue that initiative to sort of bring that standard across the region. And also on the ACRD curbside rollout and I know it will be happening, that there be continuing education effort on the part of the ACRD to communicate to people how to manage their carts in a wild safe manner. That we now have this window of opportunity before next bear season for more people to have their carts anchored, which is what this season taught us is essential. And I know there's some discussions, I think, with Ucluelet First Nations around potentially replacement of brass carabiners with steel carabiners, as we saw 9 different bears all use their intellect and resourcefulness to find the weakness in the design, and it's the brass carabiners. So they've pointed us to the work ahead that's needed. And so next bullet, please. And this has been a recommendation in recent years. It's also a best practice that is other municipalities have been looking to, is having a requirement for wild safe waste management practices embedded within business licenses. I know the business licenses say that all applicable bylaws must be observed, and if Tofino's bylaw is passed, then that would cover that, but maybe having more specific wording in business licensing, and also having those considerations addressed in development permits at the permit application stage, so that developers know right off the top that they need to incorporate that in their development designs. Next. And all of this work is just the best practices moving the communities in the region towards, in reality, being bear smart communities. And it also serves as the model for communities elsewhere. So I know the activities and things that progress that's made in this region is shared through the Wild Safe BC program across the province. Next. And the specific communications goal has been to work with the district's communications people and the tourism boards in both communities. And that has been going well, and expect that there'll be new developments for next season on that. And the last bullet is consider providing resourcing to fund a full-time year-round position. All of the experience of the last 6 years has pointed to and what I shared today about how different this year is from past years is that there's a need for the program to be really dynamic, responsive, and adaptive. It's complex. There's many complexities, and each season we learn important lessons from the bears and our human side of things. We learn important things every year, and the winter is that window of time where you could really work on what was learned and work on the next set of goals based on those insights that you've learned. And it would assist in terms of continuity. It would enhance, provide support to district staff and others. Following the delegations for District of Tofino and Ucluelet and conversations after that, I was encouraged to put something forward in writing at ASAP, and the provincial coordinators working on that submission that will be coming sometime this week. And just like to thank everyone for the unstinting support and encouragement. It's just very rewarding, challenging and rewarding to be able to work on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it once again, of course. I'll open it up to the committee if there's any questions or comments for Bob, Wild Safe BC.
Well, thanks, Bob. I really appreciate it. And I know we've talked on the phone and with regards to Area C, in particular Salmon Beach, because there's an issue there. We've got bear-proof garbage cans and so on. And now we're talking about putting up electric fencing around our compound to look forward to talking to you about that. I would really like to see, and I'll talk to the Salmon Beach Committee when I see them next, about getting out there in the spring and talking about bear spray and electric fencing and all that sort of good stuff. It's really, really excellent. But as far as the containers are concerned, is there an opportunity for the regional district and other communities to talk about having their garbage cans similar to the food waste containers, having a locking lid on them, or is it up to the communities or the individuals to put their own? The issue is that the requirement for a lot of communities is that they put their garbage out. Some people put it out at night before, and which we don't do where we are in Qualicum. And in Qualicum, we're not immune from bear visitations because I live across the street from the community forest, and we have the odd cougar walk by, and this year there's a bear that's on this trap line and he comes to our yard. So it's all positive stuff that we don't have any issues with it, and we're bear aware. So for the most part, it's pretty good. But yeah, I'm just wondering if the garbage carts couldn't have some type of a locking handle on them like the food waste containers. Just food for thought. And I appreciate the work that you've been doing. I'm so happy to see that there's only been one bear euthanized, and that's as a result of an attack on a dog and so on, and that's understandable. yeah, we have lots of bears in our community, clearly, and it's important that people are, you know, are given the opportunity to, and through the videos, I'm sure it's gonna be a great asset for everybody, so appreciate it. I'm looking forward actually to seeing the bear numbers go up, which they are. We've had a sow at Salmon Beach for a number of years. It's had 4 cubs. And so that's pretty exciting stuff, but they're around along with the wolves and the cougars out there. So appreciate it and thank you very much.
Thank
Excellent
you.
presentation. Thanks, Bob.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, very much.
Yes, great news that no bears were put down other than the one aggressive one. And I'm just curious, was that aggressive one in one of our communities or was it in a more rural type area?
It was in a remote location in Clayoquot Sound.
And the person was hiking with their dog by themselves?
Yeah, they were walking along a road and this bear, there was no history or awareness of this bear, so no preceding events that might have pointed to a risk. And basically the dog was off leash, but only a couple meters away, and the bear stepped out of the forest and grabbed it. And then when it was responded to, the bear was aggressive to the responders, and that was the end. Yeah, so yeah, those situations are incredibly rare, but they can and do happen.
Good point for keeping dogs on leash.
Exactly.
Yeah. And interesting that no cars were broken into this year. And I think you mentioned something that cohort of theirs is no longer around, that managed to figure out how to open a car door.
Yeah, so the 38 bears that were put down in the past 4 years, that is that cohort that one learned that sheds were an important target, that Rubbermaid containers that they could smell were inside those sheds, and they became super proficient at breaking into sheds. It didn't matter how well constructed they were or what they were constructed out of. Once they hit on that, they just improved their skill sets, and it was multiple bears in multiple communities. Same thing happened with the vehicles. So the first year, 2021, it was 6 vehicles accessed. April 11th, the next spring, one of the vehicles that had been opened the year before, that was the first report of the year, the bear went right back to that same vehicle. Well, actually it was an RV, and took the plywood off the 6-foot hole in the side of the RV, and the couch was out in the middle of the street. And then it went from there. It was just escalated throughout the season. And by the end of last year, all of those bears, I believe, that had developed those various skill sets were gone. So this spring, new bears filling in those vacant territories. And it was just really fascinating how they didn't go, the moving to residential carts has shifted those containers out of sheds out onto the street. And so only 4 sheds access this year. The bears just totally focused on carts. And it just shows how adaptive they are and responsive to changes. And then it took some time for them to figure out where the weaknesses were. And that's where, just as we had identified in the ACRD communication, our communication, how important it was to have the carts anchored so they couldn't be dragged away. But unfortunately, most residents even still do not have their carts anchored. And they can get them into the bush, then they can spend hours. And so 9 different bears, actually there's one in Etatsu now too, the last 2 weeks, dragged enough carts away, spent enough time, and all of them independently found the weakness, which is the breast clips. So it just, yeah, shows that we're always going to be trying to get ahead of the curve with the bears, but they're it's pretty fascinating how quickly they figure things out. But it moving to residential carts is the single biggest change that can significantly reduce the risk of conflicts. And if we can get those other pieces, the steel carabiners and the anchoring, that could be, or, you know, the potential's there to be a significant game changer.
Just a quick follow-up to that, really a question for staff. Has the manufacturer of those carts been told that that is a weakness and that the bears are getting in through those carabiners?
Through the chair, yeah, so we have 200 new carts on order with new carabiners, and these ones we've tested through Hitatsu and worked with Spencer to find ones. They also have a little more of a snake bite effectiveness to them, so those ones seem to be holding up very well. I had to learn this, that there is no such thing as a bear-proof cart. It's only ever bear resistant, and as Bob had mentioned, with enough time, they will figure out everything. So I think that won't be our fundamental solution. It is getting people to anchor and secure their carts. But we will, if we have the ability, and we have a lot of other carabiner replacements coming on order, we'll be switching them out as we can and as we need to.
So that will be an announcement to the public somehow?
We'll just be doing it.
Great, thank you.
Through the chair, it sounds like the businesses have really stepped up. If there's, you know, last year there was 21 beer commercial bins accessed, and this year only 2. You know, that seems like quite an accomplishment. So.
Yeah, and the progress has been year to year to year in terms of the commercial bins, and Ozark Environmental has made that commitment to retrofit their entire inventory to have lids that are self-latching, and they have been making progress on that. So I know a number of hotspots where they had the lift bar type container in past years that bears were hitting, have now had those replaced with the self-latching lids. Also, the 32 training presentations we did, it's emphasized in all our engagement that the commercial bins can be made secure. It just takes a few seconds to flip the lid up or flip the bar up if that's style they have, and put a clip through it. So I'm hopeful that some of that improvement has been due to all that education.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And, you know, just the relationship between the ACRD and WellSafe BC has shown we are on an improving trend in many ways. As you pointed out, we are never static in this relationship with our friends out there. So we continue to have your work doing what is. You mentioned a couple of things, and then you in terms of the coordinated funding potentially for that year-round position, and the suggestion was that we have that, and it's something that once again to the municipalities, but certainly to the ACRD, where we'd like to see that as a year-round position. It's obvious in your presentation the amount of work that goes into the program, specifically over that summertime period, but we know the winter time is a time when you can start working on some of the technical aspects of the work that needs to be done, not just out there with your directly hands-on in these areas. So we look forward to seeing that, and well, certainly I can't speak for them, Ucluelet, but certainly the District of Tofino has been very supportive, and I know the ACRD and their relationship with the WellSafe BC. So we look forward to seeing that. And once again, just appreciate that relationship that WellSafe BC has been able to build with the communities of the West Coast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm going to take a point of privilege for a 2-minute break. The diuretics are working. I'll be right back.
Right. I'm going to, I'll step out because you guys are going to go to.
We've got some reports and then I'm here.
Thanks, y'all. Good. Great.
Yeah, we're not quite at the.
It's okay, but that's okay. I can see this.
You want
Okay.
to submit me? Nice to see you.
That's great. Yeah.
Yes, I forgot that we said we would do a meetup on, was it the 13th? Do you want to just wait?
Whatever works for us.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Now you got my curiosity.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Oh,
That makes more sense, and then we'll
Yeah.
have the full conversation with it.
Oh, wait.
Great, okay. Thank you.
Thank
Budget.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bob.
yeah, nice to meet you.
Yes, definitely appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Wow. You don't have quorum.
Are you heading out as
You have
well?
no council.
Sure.
Thanks.
It was
Yeah.
a super hope that we could get
No,
that
just-
9 bear count last year down to 0.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, it was
Vital signs.
fascinating year.
Super useful for us, right? So, and I know there's a lot of other organizations that are.
I think you sort of have things
It's
pretty
just really
clear
important to have.
dialed and then
that way when we're
get a
working
year
on
like this
so many
year.
different programs and
Oh, they're
programs.
amazing at it.
Yeah.
Smart.
They
All they
really
tear
gotta
apart
keep-
giant trees to get crops.
Yeah,
They lift up
Yeah,
150 pound.
Appreciate your staff. I
Yeah,
think you-
yeah.
Thank you. I think you.
Yeah, yeah.
Except when they babies.
yeah.
Yeah,
15 minutes.
Foods, yeah, food.
love the data.
That's it. It's highly.
it's great.
Yeah.
Say a lot.
Well, enjoy the rest
So
of the
that's
day.
really great.
Thanks.
So good.
I'm not sure if it's
We'll
gonna
get the
involve
letter.
Doris, but it should.
And then
before the sun goes down.
Jenny and Polo, when Polo gets back.
I was
on May
thinking,
11th.
When we get the management to the bylaw. When we get the bylaw actually.
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be interesting to explore QR codes. Like if every
Yeah.
thing had a QR code.
Yeah.
Bylaw could just, or anybody could just go click, 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 click.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't have to. It would be an instant electronic warning.
Right.
Right to your email. By the
Right.
way, the thing was found outside of hours,
Yeah.
early in the morning, warning, so that's, there must be people, oh, yeah. This is really about behavior. It's
Yeah,
bad behavior, but it's human behavior.
well, yeah, that's challenging, like the beers or,
Janice.
yeah.
Anyway, something like that.
Yeah,
There it is.
there are codes embedded in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Super.
okay,
Thanks. Bob.
All right.
thanks.
You don't do a job well, you don't.
How long do we?
Once and done.
I'll probably be here for a little bit, and if you.
I didn't want to. Back up.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Great, we got everyone back. I can think again. So moving on with our agenda, we've got some requests for decisions here and starting out with our Long Beach Airport. Lease application for the Long Beach Golf Course and Campground, AKA the Long Beach Recreation Cooperative.
Excellent. I'll be happy to speak to that. So as the committee probably remembers, we did a market rate assessment some time ago. And we looked at the Long Beach golf course specifically and did a special assessment to look at other golf courses and come up with an appropriate market rate for them. We talked with them because the increase was significant from what they were going to be paying to what market rate was. And we did a 1-year increase to $28,000 a year. And we also talked about some of their needs and long-term goals to really invest in the site and build some infrastructure there. And their interest in doing a 10-year lease. And we think that that's very appropriate for the golf course. They've been with us for a very long time, always on 3-year leases because there's contamination on the site. We're not planning to ever register it or subdivide it, nor is there a need. But we can very appropriately put a 10-year unregistered lease in place for this. So the golf course has put in their application for that. It would be a 10-year lease at full market rate starting on April 1st this year. And we have spoken with Taloquit First Nation. As you know, we have our MOU that we're about to sign shortly. And so they reviewed that and do support this application. And I don't think there's anything else really of key note here, but I'm happy to answer any questions on the lease.
Has that property changed hands, like the ownership of the golf course itself? Has it changed hands recently?
No, not to my understanding, because it's run by a cooperative. So the board itself might have different individuals that are sort of leading that or chairing, but it has always just been the cooperative. So it is technically a not-for-profit type of organization.
Got it, thanks.
To the chair, to Jenny, so it looks like 56,300 per year. Is that double what they were paying before? Pretty close?
Pretty close.
I think we started at 15,000 a year, about 2 years ago.
So, yeah, is this, are they able to handle this, or they are? Okay. All right, well, that's awesome. Market rates. I didn't know what their market out here was, but I guess there's a lot of tourists come through and yeah, okay, that's great, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. And just maybe to follow with Cal, they, part of the 10-year lease agreement, they've made significant improvements out there. And one of the things they've done is a campground, which I can't remember how many sites are there, but it's certainly a good revenue generator for the nonprofit and able to bring some of the improvements out there. So they have been working very diligently, and this is a little security for them on that 10-year lease, and they're more than able to resource and we certainly at the ACRD are looking at ways to non-taxation revenues to support the activities that happen in the region. And I'm once again super happy to hear the conversations with TFN, as we know they do critically important in these conversations, you know, specifically around those airport lands, but in general. So very much supportive of this agreement. And I'd look to maybe one of our committee members too. Thank you, Kel, if you'd like to read out the recommendation.
That the West Coast Committee recommend that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve entering into a 10-year lease agreement with the Long Beach Golf Course and Campground, Long Beach Recreational Cooperative, for a lease lot LS L2024001 at market rate, which is $56,300 per year, effective April 1st, April 2024, and authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute LS L2024001 lease on behalf of the regional district.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried. Great, thank you. Now we get into our reports. And I don't know if Jody is online, but we have the West Coast Sort and Go 3-stream waste collection program year 1 update.
I love the enthusiasm, and I will speak with that if I may speak to it. Unfortunately, Jody is not able to be here today. She's working on our solid waste management plan update, and there's a lot of activity with that. But I am excited to talk about this. And I believe that we also did just recently have an article, and we've got a news release attached in the Westerly. I think that was actually this week, which is lovely. So the good news, there is so much good news. As you know, the West Coast rollout is over a year in place now. We originally expanded our curbside program into the First Nation communities of Hitatsu, Taistana, Sasawista, and that was in October of 2022. So we're celebrating more than 1 year with our First Nations on board, and they actually led the charge with the 3-stream, going from centralized collection to the curbside. And then in December of last year, we basically rolled it out to all of the communities in Ucluelet and moved into our new system, which, besides a little bit of bare glitches here and there, has been extremely successful and very well received in the community. We do have an infographic, but I want to highlight some of the amazing success. So we've seen waste generation decrease from 391 kilograms average to 200 kilograms per household per year. That's about a 48% reduction in waste. That's incredible. We knew it was going to happen because the West Coast is very committed to reducing and diverting. We've collected over 300 tons of organic waste from the landfill, and we've seen our recycling collection also increase a little bit, but because we already had recycling in place, we expected some increase, and it's been about 11% increase. So that's great. That is really good, and we do not want to undermine that in any way possible, because really that's success. However, there's always room for improvement. And we have done a waste audit to look at some things. And so we do want to mention that there is still room for improvement. There's about 38% of organic material and 22% of recycling material still going into the waste stream. this is a complicated issue because we have a lot of different user groups on the West Coast. A lot of them are tourists who come and go and might not know or understand our program. So we're very aware of the different user groups that are using the program, which ones are good, which ones are bad, and we're going to continue to work on great education campaigns to target those areas. That is sort of our next steps moving forward, which is working on focusing those education pieces. What can we do to continue to remove that and increase that diversion, decrease generation in general, and of course, recycling increase as well. As I mentioned at the onset, our solid waste management plan has started and we've got our committee working on that. We're going to be doing different user groups to discuss specifically for communities what we think is going to work to improve our waste diversion and improve our solid waste system in general. It's a really exciting program and we're working on that at the moment. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I'll look to the committee here. Marilyn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We have a vacation rental property with 3 units and I am impressed with how many of our guests use the organics, the little tabletop organics container. That surprised me. What hasn't surprised me is that a lot of people still don't recycle properly. And we will only dig into their garbage so much to pull things out. So yeah, I don't know if there's maybe some tent cards that owners of vacation properties could maybe put, just describing what goes in what. I think you've got those little fridge magnets that says what goes in, what stays out. Maybe distributing those a little further afield would help, because I could put those in each unit. But yeah, and I also was recently told that there was some legislation that came through in October about contaminated soil, and just wondered how that's affecting our landfill. Is there some regulation now? Is contaminated soil being accepted? Is it?
So I can speak a bit to, thank you for the information on the vacation rentals. We are on the same page. We're going to continue to work on that one. With contaminated soils, as it relates to our landfills right now, we do not typically accept contaminated soils. So it's a challenging situation across, especially Vancouver Island, because there's lots of projects that happen that produce these contaminated soils, and it's very difficult to find a place for them to go. And it's become increasingly more challenging because the regulations have become more stringent. At our landfills, if we have a project that's within our region that we need to address and it has contaminated soils, we will work on a one-off with the ministry in order to get the authorization to potentially take that at the landfill. But as it stands right now, anything that is, there's different standards of what is allowed and isn't allowed in the soil when it's tested. And so it has to be below industrial limits, and that's what we can currently accept. And if it is above that, we do not by default accept that into our landfill. And that is sort of the common definition of what a contaminated soil is. So it's just has more contaminants in it than regular soil. That's really been no change specifically since October, really, because we haven't been accepting them. But that might have been a change for other landfills who maybe had other old acceptance criteria.
Yeah, I was told that the only place that will accept it is Duke Point.
I wasn't even aware that they were able to. And like the last time I checked, I don't think there was a single spot on Vancouver Island where you could take it, which is a real problem for everyone.
Yeah, I was told Duke Point, but then the municipality would have to pay for shipping there. Anyway, interesting.
Question through the chair. I know that there are some communities in British Columbia that do not allow soil from one community to be taken and dumped in another community. That you have to do what you have within your own unless it's contaminated, as you say, Dew Point, and there are other facilities. I'm just wondering if there's any potential for that type of a bylaw to be put in place.
So currently at the ACRD, we do not want garbage or anything from out of region. So our principle and guiding direction is that we're very responsible for everything within our region, and we want to manage it effectively, but we keep managing just our regional waste. Some regional districts, you know, are, and it makes good sense too, because there are places that simply have no place for a landfill anymore. And so some regional districts do look at that as, it's a liability for sure, but it is it's an economy. And so there is a waste economy. And the other thing that I forgot to mention about contaminated soils is that you can treat contaminated soils. So there is a process to bring it below the limits, which then classifies it as no longer contaminated.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, just further on that, Cache Creek, for example, which has taken the garbage from Vancouver and the questions that surround that. It's, just happened to be on my son's course, and it just happened to be on the desk this morning as I walked out. So it tweaked me on to that, but it was a revenue source that was seen from the regional district out there.
I think that's done there now, isn't it?
I believe that is.
Yeah, Cache Creek's
but I
shut
think it's
down.
pretty much finished. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Jenny. Of course, you know, it's a topic, and you know, at the Solid Waste Management Advisory Committee, from an ACRD perspective, you know, a key focus of that area of the advisory is the sort and go, and the amount of diversions is impressive. And the fact that, you know, once again, I'm impressed to hear, you know, the conversations, even with WellSafe BC, in terms of the areas of improvement. Not only are they identified, but they're acted on almost immediately. And so those were the kind of, like around the clips, for example, where we're just going to do it, get the job done. So this is exactly the type of thing you want to see happening in our communities. So I cannot thank staff, of course, enough for being what we would call proactive and then acting immediately upon those recommendations. There are a few things, you know, from municipalities' perspective that I think we can continue to work on with the ACRD in terms of those implementations, and how we can also, you know, not just through communications, but where we can also have that collaborative approach. I think there's lots of opportunities still out there. And as Bob pointed out, this is not static. This is a continuum on here. So thank you once again. So that brings us up to now. I see a couple. Well, I see is it Dave that's up there? Got my glasses, put them on. Yes. We have our reports now from our ex officio members, and I see Pacific Rim National Park sitting up there. Dave, welcome. And I don't know if you have anything to share, but it'd be wonderful if there is.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and to the committee. So I have 3 short updates. We do have some personnel updates. So we do have a new field unit superintendent for Parks Canada in this region. So that's Vancouver Island and the Lower Mainland. We will be sending out official communications to the districts and nations later on today. And also more locally, the Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, you all know that Karen Hogan resigned about a year, well, actually about 6 months ago, but she left the position over a year ago. So that position has also been filled permanently. So we will send out communications on that as well. Number 2 is coastal safety. So we're looking at expanding on some of the Coast Smart initiatives. So this is just kind of a heads up to the nations and the districts that there's a lot of interest in the area of you know, promoting safe water activities. So we're looking at getting together partners and stakeholders to have further discussions on what this could look like from a regional approach. So building upon the Coast Smart initiative that was signed off several years ago by the districts of Tofino, Ucluelet, and Parks Canada, and make it even wider with First Nations and the ACRD included as well. And then the third point, Chair, is just yeah, we're very excited about the all the presentations today, and especially about the regional transit discussions. And we've been working with Eddie and the ACRD on it, and Pacific Rim is very excited that we're looking forward to regional transit coming on April 1st, 2024. That's it for the updates for Pacific Rim National Park Reserve.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. And we got to say hi to Karen. We were in Anakla last week. Was it last week? A couple weeks ago for the Solid Waste Management Advisory. And Karen was there to greet us as we came in. So she's still around.
Yes.
So wonderful. Thank you so much, Dave. And I'll be interested to see in terms of that collaborative approach on that Coast Smart initiative. As you know, there has certainly been a focus with the incidences that have occurred on the West Coast, and we certainly want to, all of us are concerned about increasing the safety for the visitors as well as the residents of our community. So I look forward to seeing that as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't know, question for, yeah, Marilyn, go ahead, sorry.
Yes, through the chair, not a question really, but a comment. When we had our TV channel, Our Town TV Long Beach, we ran all the Coast Smart videos. And now that we have Off the Edge Radio, any of those videos that could have the video stripped out and just be verbal, that worked without the images, we are running all those on our radio station now too, just for your information.
Wonderful.
Working here.
Thank you for the support, Marilyn.
I saw him writing away.
Oh, okay. You bet.
Great. So I'll look to staff to see, I don't see on the board there if any representation from House It First Nation online. So the participation. And I'm wondering if anyone from TFN as well, like not seeing any on the list of participants, and so that would work for the Heshwit First Nation as well. So I'll move from the chair that the West Coast Committee receive reports A through B.
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried. I do not believe there is any late business for our friends today, and I'll just look to staff to see if there are any questions. I didn't see any participants from outside of those from the public. Heather.
Thank you. There's no questions received in Zoom and no questions received via email. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, I hope you're feeling better. Wonderful. So at this point, if we could have a motion, I'll read from the chair, motion to go in camera, motion to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter. And the sections that we'll be dealing with today are section L, 91 dash, looks like L, information that is prohibited or information that if were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. II 21-1 to II of the FOIPA, commercial, financial, labor relations, scientific or technical information of or about a third party.
Second.